The world number one Magnus Carlsen is in his zone. He's reached the finals of the ASEAN uh, esports Chess Cup 2026 that's happening in Bangkok, Thailand, and his opponent is Andrey Esipenko, the person who recently played the candidates. It's two games of 10 plus 0, and then in case of 1-1 tie we have the Armageddon. It's a very exciting and intense format with no increment. Magnus is getting ready. He's managed to reach the finals of this tournament by beating some strong players. So has Andrey Esipenko. And by the way, we have this very nice angle as well where we can see Magnus playing on the chess.com board from the back. The both players are at the same venue, but they're going to play on the computer screen. That's the esports format. And let's begin. First game, Magnus opens with pawn to d4. We have d5, c4, e6, queen's gambit decline, knight to c3, bishop comes out to e7, pawn takes pawn, and bishop f4. The knight comes out to f6 and e3, castles, bishop d3, and you have Andrey striking in the center with c5. This was also played in the candidates. You can push your pawn to c4, but Andrey goes bishop g4, pinning the knight. Magnus decides to chop off the pawn. Bishop takes c5, and now thinks for a bit and pushes his pawn to h3. Bishop takes e2, and now you can take with the queen, bishop or knight. He takes with the knight. Queen comes to b6, attacking the b2 pawn, and Magnus jumps knight g3. The idea of this move is to take control of the f5 square. If you take queen takes b2, I have rook b1 attacking b7. So Andrey has to decide what is the way in which he would like to respond here. And he goes for the move, can play g6 here. You can also play rook e8, rook d8 seems also feasible. So many options in this position. He goes for the move pawn to g6. And now Magnus has to think whether he wants to save this pawn. He goes rook b1, saving the pawn but also preparing the move pawn to b4. And once you take it, a3, and you lose material. So b4 is a very interesting move. Now look at the structure carefully. Black has an isolated pawn on d5, which means that white should be having a small edge, and every time that black wants to push forward, by the way, rook a d8 played maybe to push forward with d4. Every time you put d4, I have the move e4 that I want to play. Anyway, b4 played, bishop d6, and now Magnus goes, he can take the bishop, but he can also move it away, and he goes bishop g5, attacking the knight on f6. And now you can push forward with b5, bishop e7, b5 played, and now the knight has to move away. So knight e5 played, attacking the bishop drops back to e2, and you play pawn to a4. But d4, black first gets in the move. d4 here takes, rook takes, the queen is attacked, and now all of a sudden the position looks around even. However, white has the bishop pair. So bishop c5, getting the bishop on this diagonal. Magnus brings the rook to d1, challenging the rook in the center, and now after rook takes rook, you can take back with the queen here. Takes, queen takes d1, and already Andrey seems to have equalized the game. Rook e8 he plays, defending the knight. Also, the rook is well placed on the open file. I'm actually curious to see how Magnus would play this. What is the way to put pressure, because he's usually so good at it. The position looks equal. Queen c1. Now this is the kind of move which is so difficult for many people to play. But now suddenly you want to put your queen on a very good square on f4, and it's such a powerful move. and then later you want to play a4. Knight d7 played, brings this knight back. By the way, the threat was bishop takes, queen takes, and c5 was hanging, so knight d7 does make sense. Also, unleashing the rook on the e2 square. Magnus now down to 4 minutes on the clock, 4 minutes 22 seconds for Andrey Esipenko. Magnus taking his time here. He's thinking through what he must do. He plays pawn to a4. And yeah, a5 threats are in the air. a5, queen a5, bishop f6, knight f6, queen to c5. That can be possible. Bishop d4 played. Queen comes up to d2. And now Andrey needs to find a very cool move here. So Magnus is keeping an eye this way. a5 is in the air, but bishop e5 is a very powerful move, because then you are threatening bishop takes g3 because the f2 pawn is pinned. And bishop e5, a5 on the board, first hitting the queen. I guess queen c7 is good. Queen d6 also can be considered and going into this endgame, but playing endgames against Magnus always very stressful. So queen to c5, but queen c5 I'm not so sure, because then I go rook c1 and I hit you with getting the queen out of this diagonal. Queen d4, maybe take, and rook d1 is also possible. So Andrey has this tough decision to make where to take his queen. He goes queen c5, but now rook c1 is the point. Let's see if Magnus finds it. And what I love absolutely is that Magnus has managed to find a home for this bishop. It will go to f3. It will attack here. But right now the b5 pawn is soft. So rook c1, queen a3. Looking at the rook, also the pawn, but both are defended. There's also the threat of bishop g3, fg3, and queen takes g3. So bishop f3 makes a lot of sense here. Magnus calculating here, making sure that this works for him. Bishop f3, plays it. What do you do about the b7 pawn? If you play b6, I have bishop c6 with the idea of take, and queen takes d7. That seems like a good way to continue. So bishop f3, putting pressure on b7 pawn. And Magnus Carlsen is better, but okay, I don't really get it. Where should black play in order to save the pawn? I mean, I don't even see another move. Yeah, knight c5 maybe to defend here, but then rook e1 pinning. He goes queen b3. He attacks the b5 pawn. I mean, if you take bishop b7, queen takes b5, but then bishop c6, all of a sudden I'm threatening bishop f6 and bishop d7. So not so simple. I mean, I can just simply snatch the pawn. Queen b3 is played by Andrey, and Magnus takes it. Queen takes, bishop g3 is what he wanted to take, queen takes. And now let's look at the position carefully. This bishop is putting pressure here. The queen is attacking the bishop. The rook could jump in. There's pressure down here. These are known as superfluous knights because they both are protecting each other. And sometimes the best way to attack superfluous knight is one bishop attacking one knight, the other bishop attacking the other knight, and then none of them can move, because one moves, the other falls. So bishop c6 is the best move here. And there are also other moves. Magnus plays it, bishop c6. Well, not really a threat to take here, because there is rook e1 check, rook takes, queen takes, king h2, bishop, queen e5, and queen takes g5. So a long variation, but maybe there are some other ways. Just to one threat could be bishop f6, knight f6, and bishop takes e8. So the rook needs to move away from here. And that is an important bit of thing that Andrey Esipenko has to take care of. He goes rook e6. And let's see what's the way to put the most pressure. One is to drop the bishop back, bishop f4. As mentioned, taking here is also possible. Magnus puts his bishop on d7. He's not yet moved it. He's not sure. He's hovering the mouse over there. And he takes it. Bishop d7, knight d7. And bishop f4. Hitting the queen has to move away. Queen h4 and rook c8 check. You play a check, king g7 and bishop to h6 check. That's a very cool variation. Bishop h6, queen h6, rook g8 check. So Magnus plays it, but king will come out to f6. And then a tough move that Magnus has to find, which is to retreat the rook back to check it from here. It's not an easy decision. It's a tough one there. By the way, Andrey is deciding whether to take and see if there's any kind of fortress in that position. No. Rook c1 found in an instant, in a trace by Magnus. What a move. Rook c1 played. And all of a sudden, like, there are massive threats. Queen takes d7 is a threat. Rook e5 played. And now just queen d6 check should do the job. Because the king is attacked, king can't go back, so blocks and check, and it's a mate. It's a mate here. Queen has to block and Magnus would take it, and Magnus Carlsen wins the first game of this event, and already the second game has begun. We will see this from Magnus's POV because one of the angles that we have has black at the bottom, so let's keep it that way so that no one is confused. We have the Sicilian Khan that is played here, one of the favorite openings of Amruta Mukul, my better half, a3. And the point of this little move is to just throw the ball back to black and say, what are you going to do? For example, are you going to play queen c7, then I have c4, and you have essentially stopped all bishop b4 ideas. Magnus goes b5 with the idea of bishop b7 to put the bishop attacking the e4 pawn, and maybe here pawn to c4 is one idea. He plays it, pawn to c4. Magnus takes, bishop takes c4, bishop b7 attacking the pawn on e4. Knight comes out to c3. Okay, if you play knight f6, there is e4, e5. So first, he plays it, e5, maybe knight to e4. There's also queen c7 attacking here and here. Interesting. Andrey says, I don't want to push the pawn yet. I'll play queen e2, defending e4, defending c4. And now Magnus has to find a way to continue. He goes queen c7, eyeing the bishop here. Also maybe keeping an eye on the e4 pawn so that c4 hangs, but there is a8 hanging in the end. e5, knight g4, bishop f4, instantly played. Now threatening to push the knight away with h3. But perhaps there is knight to c6 here. He plays it. What a nice move. This is hanging, takes, queen takes, attacks g2 and c4. So knight c6 played. And now knight e5, bishop e5, knight e5 and c4 is a bit loose. So, but the best way to continue is take and f3. And that would give white an edge. Let's see if Andrey plays that way. It seems like the most natural thing to do, but he goes knight to f3. And in doing so, Magnus has an advantage with the move g5 here. That would be very strong. Will Magnus find it? g5. If you take here, the e5 pawn falls. Otherwise, if you go back, I have h5 as well. He goes knight e7. And maybe that's not a good move. He's trying to go to the king side. But now Andrey can simply push the knight away with h3. I think one of those rare moments where Magnus has kind of misjudged the moment, the position, and gone too slow. Because g5 and he would have had a great position. Andrey Esipenko goes h3, knight to g6, attacking the bishop here. The bishop needs to drop back. Bishop g3, knight h6 is forced. Come back, threatening knight f5. Now imagine that you play a move like castling. Black is completely fine. Knight f5, bishop h2, queen c6 eyeing here. I mean, it's just a great position for black. So the main thing now is to stop knight to f5, and so bishop d3 comes to mind. That's a very decent move. Bishop d3, and if Andrey finds it, Magnus will have to then continue with bishop e7 or bishop c5, preparing short castles. That seems logical enough. 5 minutes for Magnus, 5 minutes 43 seconds. Andrey finds it. Bishop d3, good move. Took some time, but he caught it. And now Magnus, well, thinking here what exactly to play, because knight f5 is not possible. I would suggest bishop e7 and preparing short castle, but he goes knight f5 and he's pre-moved bishop f5 e5. That's one of the perks of playing online. You can pre-move it. He takes f5, but he's actually calculated stuff. So the thing is, he's calculated takes e6, attacking the queen, but he's seen f4 is possible. But is that good? Actually, it's just winning for white. Takes e6, f4 he plays, shutting down the bishop, but e takes d7 is a double check. Andrey has to just take the pawn. It's a double check there, and Magnus will be in big trouble. King takes, and now long castle. To safeguard your king, the rook opens up. Oh my god, oh my god. If you go king c8, there is queen e8, game over. So Magnus, good or bad, either has to play bishop d6 or king c6. I mean, he plays bishop d6, he's shaking his head, because now rook takes d6 is an incredible move. If you take with the queen, rook d1, you lose material. If you take with the king, rook d1, and you're almost mated here with knight d5 coming. So he can simply take it, but Andrey goes knight g5, giving Magnus a small chance here. Now notice, if you take here, knight f7 is very powerful, but you have an intermezzo here, which is to attack the queen. Rook h e8. How easy is it? Rook h e8, attacking the queen. If queen g4 check, king e7, and you run away here inside. So rook e8 is an important move to be found, because then the king has a good way to run. But he plays the other rook, rook a8, but that doesn't solve the problem, because after queen g4 check now, which Andrey will most likely play in this position, queen g4, king has to go to e7, check. I mean, king e7 is a decent move. In fact, it would really stretch Andrey to find a good resource there, which was queen f5, but king c6, and this is crazy. I mean, Magnus is trying to run away from here, but Andrey has knight d5, which is a very, very strong move. Sometimes such moves are difficult to see. You kind of want to make a move like bishop h2, saving your bishop, but it's slow. And the point of knight d5 here is that just attack the queen. Just attack the queen. If queen d7, I mean, there are so many ways. The main is that you can take and play knight f4. Just get the pawn, and there's a pin here. Knight d5 played by Andrey Esipenko. Queen c8, threatening the queen. And now the only move to get an advantage, queen f3. You don't want to trade queens. Trading queens, black is the one who's back in the game. Queen f3 finds it. Now the king is almost toasted. One of the threats is knight e7 check, and you lose the queen. You can't move your king away with a check somehow. F takes g3 is met with knight e7 check. Oh, but king b6 check. Wow. Okay, maybe he can take here. F takes g3. Will Magnus chop it off? Because then it's difficult to find the winning move. You know what the winning move is? Oh, it's insane. It's insane. f takes g3. Let's look at it. F takes g3, knight e7, king b6, takes, king back to b1, and bishop f3. You lose the queen. So it's like a discovered attack on the queen. That's so crazy. So Magnus thinking hard here. He sees there's a disco here, there's a disco here. Oof, too much. He takes on g3. And now a very classy move for Andrey Esipenko is king b1. It's such a crazy move. It's like calmly saying that I just want to get out from here. Your king is already in the middle. There's no way you can save your king. And I mean, if he plays king b1, he deserves to win this game. Finds it. King b1. What a move. What a move. Rook c1 is also a threat now. There is also knight e7 threatened. Too many problems and issues to solve. And well, Andrey has taken care that there are no checks to the king as well. Magnus down to 2 minutes on the clock. He goes knight e5. He attacks the queen. Queen check. Bishop c5 blocking here. And now knight to e4 even. Attacking c5. This knight is such a monster. It takes away all the squares that the king wants to go. Knight e4. Knight d7. And will you take on c5 here? No, Andrey has so many good options now in this position. Okay, one of the threats is to take on e4. The knight is hanging. So you want to be sure what to do next. Knight has come to e4. Queen c4. Aha. What a move. Threatening queen a4 check when the king doesn't have real squares. Wow, imagine if you play f5, queen a4 checkmate. Very cool. Magnus is like, what to do? He's hunted my king like crazy. Amazing king hunt. And now he wants to maybe sack and exchange rook e4. But it doesn't solve anything because the king cannot run away. Give the knight on d5. The award. The man of the match award. Rook takes e4, queen takes e4, queen e8, and now queen a4 check should do the trick because king d6, knight f6 check, and you lose the queen. Check here. Magnus Carlsen shakes his head, resigns the game, and the score is now 1-1. It's time for the Armageddon, and you can see Magnus there quickly analyzing his game, trying to understand his mistake. At this level, all you need is to understand what you could have done better in that given position. And Magnus, well, he's unhappy at the way in which things panned out there. And what a game by Esipenko. He's now 1-1, and it's time for the Armageddon. You can see Magnus analyzing there. Bishop a8 takes and queen a4, and this is all that he needs to know. He switches off the game and gets ready for the toss. There's a toss that's going to happen next, and that's the arbiter there, Mong Lwin, who is a very, very experienced arbiter, and he shows Magnus. Magnus chooses white, and he will have 5 minutes. Andrey will have 4 minutes, and the game starts with knight f3. Must win for Magnus. Draw is not good enough. e6, castles, bishop e7, d3, castles, and this new idea with knight c3. Not knight d2, but knight to c3 with the idea of e4. Knight comes to c6. And Andrey is like, if you play e4, I'll simply take it and play e5. That's my plan. I don't know if Magnus is prepared here. He goes pawn to e4 and end games. Ooh, I don't know if playing end games against Magnus is a good idea in such situations, or what Magnus has chosen is a good idea. But Andrey takes on Magnus and says, I'm ready. I'm ready. Pawn to h3 played. And now bishop e6. The bishop comes out. Bishop e3 played, and black already seems to be doing quite well. Now you can trade the queens. Rook takes, he takes it, rook takes on d1, rook d8, and the idea is to simply trade off everything. But Magnus now can go a3. It's a useful move, taking away the a pawn, stopping bishop b4. And will he play it? Because a3 I was a bit concerned about takes, and rook d8, and you have to play this endgame when I believe it's too many things have been traded. But Magnus plays it a3. He's like, let's go, I'm ready to play that endgame. It's 4 pieces, it's complex enough. With the pressure, with the extra minute, I should be able to do something. h6 played by Andrey, taking away the g5 square, controlling it. And now an excellent move for Magnus is knight e1, and he finds it beautiful. Knight comes to d3. He's eyeing the c5 square. It would be so cool to put the knight on d3. Amazing chess. Okay, knight e1. Let's see what Esipenko does now. It's a tricky position, and Magnus has regained his minutes edge on the clock, which he began with. He slightly lost it at some point, but I think this move knight d3 really deserves knight e1, knight d3 maneuver. Takes deserves all the praise. And knight to e8. He goes for the same maneuver, but now Magnus can jump in with the knight to d5. Okay, there's also knight d3. Both moves make sense. So knight d3 with the idea of knight c5. There's also knight d5 with the idea of taking here and here. He goes knight d5. Bishop drops back to f8. And now knight d3. And the plan is to play knight to c5. There's also bishop c5. Rook comes to d8. f4 played. And Magnus is opening up the position. Pawn takes pawn. He takes back with the pawn, or, well, he's a bit unsure. It's an important decision, because you can take with the knight, other knight, bishop, pawn. Okay, let's imagine taking with the pawn is the most natural, and you can see Magnus settling down. He's trying to take a decision, a measured call here. But then knight d4 is an excellent move. If you play knight c7, I have knight e2 check, picking up the bishop on f4, and then this is hanging. It's also very interesting calculation. Takes, here knight e6, and then knight takes e6. So g takes f4. Magnus takes back with the pawn, but f5 immediately played. You can't push e5. Bishop takes d5 is a free piece. And Andrey Esipenko is very close to beating Magnus Carlsen here. Knight e5. He jumps in. With the knight. But what about fe4? Are there some tactics that you need to consider? And Magnus already pre-moves it, because bishop e4 and knight e5, fe. By the way, knight f6 check is met with knight f6 takes, and here very important move, knight f7, attacking then the bishop. So very important to calculate this through. But he plays takes, and rook d7. And this allows Magnus some leeway, because the knight is very strong. He had to, I think this move knight e5 fe did not work out. King f7, but rook d7, and now Magnus can take on f5. He has 2 minutes on the clock. He takes it. He takes f5, bishop f5, and now a very cool move, rook f1. He also plays this move, attacking the bishop. If you take bishop c2, e6, e7 is very powerful, so you can't do that. You have to go bishop e6, but then there's knight f4, and then b7 under pressure. So rook f1 really questions this bishop. If you go bishop h7, e6, so you need to keep this something here. g6 may be the answer to this. No, he goes bishop e6, knight f4, bishop c4, attacking the rook. e6, maybe not the best. Rook f2 was the best move, but rook d6 now. Andrey Esipenko has a chance. If you go rook e7, also playable. He goes rook d6, rook e1, great move. G5 played, attacking the knight, and then the E6 pawn will fall. Knight G6, can't take here because of knight F8, king F8, and bishop C5. Sorry, bishop C5. That's the problem. So threatening take and bishop C5 is a big threat. Rook E6 may be possible, but rook E6, knight F8, king F8, B3 taking the bishop away, and if you play bishop A6, check, and bishop D5 is coming. Insane calculation here by Magnus. He's found all these ideas and putting Andrey under 30, under a minute. Bishop G7, he finds the best move again. What a game this is turning out to be. Amazing chess. And Magnus now can go knight F5, knight E7, knight F5. He checks, king H8, knight F5. But knight F5, rook takes E6, knight G7, king G7. I wonder what's happening there. Magnus just going back. The pressure is intense. These are the moments where clutch situations where Magnus raises his game. These are the championship moments. Observe Magnus carefully. 1 minute on hand. Andrey has 52 seconds. Takes on B7. The position is still unclear. Knight to F5. Get the knight in. But Andrey needs to play quickly. There's no increment. He has 40 seconds. He goes pawn to C6. No, that doesn't work here. Bishops are too strong. You need activity. You can't trap those bishops. Maybe he wants to just settle the bishop on D5 square, but it can't be settled. Magnus choosing between bishop F2, B3. He goes pawn to B3. If the bishop goes to D5, there's C4. He goes BD5. And Magnus plays bishop F2, rook D6, keeping the rooks on the board. But that's no good. Bishop A6 brings his bishop from the other side. Knight to E6. And now bishop takes A7. He can take another pawn. He takes it. C5 attacking the rook here, attacking the bishop. The bishop comes back to F1. And now king G7, bishop B8, rook C7, bishop E5. You can see how Magnus quickly pre-moves. Makes few moves super quick. Rook D1 takes. King E7. And now B4, pushing the queenside pawns forward. Takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook D4, king comes up. Do you want to take another pawn? Yes, he does. Rook H4, check, king up, check, king, bishop here, rook C7. And now check, king D. He blunders the rook. He gives up the rook, and Magnus is winning. He has 15 seconds. And Andrey Esipenko resigns. What a finals this was. Insane finals. Kudos to Magnus for winning this. We caught up with him after the game to get his thoughts. Magnus, how did it feel to play this tournament, the esports format here?
It felt alright. Obviously, didn't feel like the stakes are like massive, but one thing like that I didn't enjoy that much is that like when I play on my computer in a setting like this, it's nice to have something on the air to kind of block everything out, and I didn't know if that was an opportunity, but apart from that, it's nice to see a lot of enthusiasm in the country.
Seeing Fabi get knocked out, was it surprising for you in the group stages?
To be honest, before I saw the list today, I had no idea who was playing the event. But of course, that was surprising. It just shows that in a format where you just have a few games to make it, it's pretty, it's pretty difficult for everybody.
And your semis and finals against Liam in that first game where you lost a pawn in the opening, but then you played incredibly well on this idea of rook e4, knight e3, pushing your pawns. That was unbelievable, that game.
Yeah, I was trying to channel my inner Nepo after that, because he often does that. He loses a pawn and then he just tries to go safeguard his king, and he's really, really good in these positions where his king somehow always ends up being safer than his opponent, and he can sort of outcalculate everybody. And yeah, I managed to do that. Obviously, everything was not perfect, but I was happy with the way that I approached it. I was like, okay, well, I'm lost, but I should not give up. Don't try to get everything back immediately. Just play a few like preparatory moves and then try to take the chance. And I already felt when I got in knight e3 that I might have some chances. And after I got in knight takes f5, g4, and so on, it felt like anyone's game. And he did have a concrete win after, but I was happy with the way that I handled it. That I managed to realize that that his d pawn was not queening, and I even thought about when I played f5 that like I was like maybe I should play g5 because maybe like f5 d1 hold like semi hold. But then I thought like there's no way he's gonna play d1, so I just thought and then knight d5 g. Yeah, it was all very nice.
Beautiful. And last game, this Armageddon game, amazing endgame play. It seemed like you didn't have much, but you converted it.
No, I didn't have much at all. I think he missed a concrete chance at some point to kind of simplify everything. Where I think he should have gone f takes e5 instead of knight takes e5. F takes e4, and maybe he missed that after knight takes c6. He can go rook takes d5, and I think then bishop takes e5, amongst other things. Then knight takes e5 and rook d7 is more effective because I don't get a tempo with e takes f5. And I just don't think I have anything at all. After what he played, I felt that at the very least I have good practical chances, and once I have this pawn that's running on e6, I'm kind of using that as a vehicle to trade off one of his bishops, and then at least in practice his queen side is just going to fall, and it's really tough for him.
And Magnus, in 2 days you play the World Rapid and Blitz teams. What will you do next 2 days? Relax a bit?
Yeah, I'll relax a bit. I have an event in Hong Kong on the 16th, but apart from that, I guess not much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.